So I was thinking about the concept of team. A lot of couples say, we're a team. They get married and we're a team. I think about some of the great teams in history. When I was growing up, my favorite team obviously was the Chicago Bulls because I love Michael Jordan. The thing about teams, teams are not successful just because of the teammates or the people that's on the team, right? It's not about the personnel that you have, and it's not about having a superstar on the team to do all the heavy lifting. Because when Jordan came to the Bulls, he was a really good player. He wasn't great. I tell people all the time, nobody shows up to a situation great, right? He was good, but he became great, as he developed. But the point that I'm making though is the Chicago Bulls, even though they had this amazing, dominant scorer and superstar, the Bulls as a team still did not win any championships until they made a change, not in the personnel, though they did make some personnel changes, but the major change was in the coach, right? A team is not going to be successful if they do not have the right coach. Now, when you think about marriage and us being a team, I tell people all the time, you are a team. You got on the same jerseys. You're playing for the same team. You're trying to accomplish the same goals. But who's directing you? Who's coaching you? Player coaching does not work for marriage, right? Because if I'm in the marriage and I'm the coach, then I get to set the rules how I want. I get to run the plays that I want to run. They're going to be to my benefit. I'm going to get the ball all the time, right? I'm going to shoot most of the shots. Why? Because I feel like I'm a better shooter than you. Your goal is to catch the ball when I pass it, right? Because I'm the player coach. But for marriage, you need someone outside of the marriage to coach you. Now, who better to be your coach than the one who created marriage? Okay? Marriage is God's idea. It's not man's idea. It's not the government's idea. It's God's idea. And so if you're going to be a successful team when it comes to marriage, you need God coaching your team. As a matter of fact, if God is coaching your team, it actually makes it more simple. It doesn't make it easier, but it does make it more simple. Why? Because God has a standard by which he has designed marriage to operate by, right? He has a playbook. And all you have to do is run the plays. The problem comes when you as a player feel like you're bigger than the coach and you want to run the plays that you want to run. You're not going to be as successful at marriage, at the game of marriage, and I don't really like calling it a game, but in this analogy, the game of marriage, when you're not operating by the coach's playbook, right? Now, if you don't know the coach, you need to get to know him if you want to be successful at marriage. Again, you can have a great team. You can have a superstar. You guys can score a lot of points. You guys can even win games throughout the year. But when it comes to the championship, what would be the relevant equivalent of a championship in marriage? I'd say getting through difficult times, because to get to a championship, once the playoffs start, you have to overcome obstacle after obstacle. And these are not regular season obstacles, right? These are the best teams, which means they represent bigger obstacles, more difficult obstacles. So in marriage, if you want to win the championship, then you got to overcome trust issues, right? You got to overcome forgiveness. You got to learn how to forgive. You cannot have any kind of successful human relationship without being good at forgiveness, right? You got to overcome your love deficit. You got to know how to love in difficult times. It's easy to love when things are going good, but here's the thing. You don't need love when things are going good. You need love when you don't want to see your mate. You need love when you don't feel like talking to them, when you don't like them very much. Love says you still treat them kindly. You still treat them with respect. You still treat them like they are your teammate. You feel me? And so if you're going to win the championship, then you got to run the playbook. You got to go by the playbook that God has already designed, and you got to depend on the coach to make the right decision. Sometimes the coach will make a decision that the players don't like or understand, but it's for the players' benefit, right? And so if you trust God, things may not make sense to you in the moment, but I promise you, and I can promise you because he's already promised, If you trust God with your marriage, your team will be a lot more successful. You will win the championship in those times when it needs to happen. And you can enjoy a pretty prosperous regular season too, meaning overcoming small obstacles and things. It just runs smoother, right? Just like teammates, you may fight sometimes. You may not always be on the same page, but the coach can make you come together for the common goal of having a successful marriage. We're not going to be successful as a team without the right coach. And the only appropriate coach for marriage is God. Why? Because marriage is God's idea. You can get a different coach. Society can be your coach, right? How your parents did marriage, you can use that as your coach. The problem is society is always changing, right? One minute marriage is a man and a woman, the next minute marriage is anybody who falls in love, right? So the standard is always changing. One minute it's skinny jeans, the next minute it's bell bottoms. So the standards in marriage, for marriage in society is always changing. Your parents, the reason why you can't use their ideas as your playbook, because number one, your parents are flawed. And even if they raised you on God's playbook, it was still their interpretation of his playbook. And so you need to know the playbook for yourself. So it's best if you take what they gave you and then you get a relationship with God and you allow God to coach you instead of using their ideas to coach your marriage and whatever. If you are your own coach, if you're going to do player coaching, that is the most fertile ground for pride to develop. Pride destroys marriages. Trust and believe at the root of every divorce, 100% of divorces is pride. And if you're going to play player coach, then I promise you, your marriage will be primed for pride. And you don't want pride taking root in your marriage because it will destroy it. I hope that this will help you do marriage better as you understand the concept of team applied to your marriage and trust the coach to get you to the championship and win. As always, if you have any questions, just feel free to email me at counseling@abetterfamilynow.com, and I will be sure to answer whatever questions you guys send.